From Santa Cruz. Hi, Mike. Do you have a question for our guest?
But I have to lay out a little scenario and ask Bob if he thinks it's correct. But it's really the same as what you were just explaining a minute ago, but with a little different slant. That in comparing what's going on now with what went on in the 30s after the crash, it just seems like what they're doing now is just a big, new, improved version of what they did back then. In other words, everything turned into a big mess, and they went around buying things up cheap with all the money they'd made from the crash. Now, it just seems like they've had many years to think about what happened back then and how they could do it better and cleaner. And now with the Toxic Assets Relief Program, they can use the Treasury to say, come along and tell us, well, here you out in the public are burdened with all these toxic assets. So what we'll do is we'll help you and take those off your hands, and they can turn around and pass it on to the big money guys. And on top of that, they can even loan the money from the Treasury to the big money guys to do it with. Is that a fair assessment of the scenario, Bob?
It certainly is. You covered most of the intent, and yes, you're right. The size of the problem is immensely larger. In the 30s, we didn't have credit cards. People used a layaway plan for the most part if they didn't have cash. And, in fact, there were people who went door to door selling all kinds of things that you could buy on time, but you had to pay for them first, and then you get delivery. And the guy would come around with his little book and write in the amount of money that you'd pay and give you a little receipt. And I know all about that because my mom did it. We were poor people. And so today we got credit cards, we got massive debt among individuals, among corporations and government. And we had a gold standard then. We don't have one now. We were a creditor nation. Goodness knows how much we're in debt. Not funny, but it's reality. And a number of other things. And today is just a mess.
I think it's really, I was just thinking, how did they create all this money during the Depression? Well, what President Roosevelt did was to double or almost double the price of gold from $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce. Now, we had, at that time, at least nominally a gold-backed currency. You had to have, I think, 40% backing for the actual money in the circulation. On top of that, you could have your fractional reserve system and lend out a lot more than you had, but certainly you had to have a sound basis for the currency, and so by doubling the price of gold, or almost doubling the price of gold, then you could almost double the amount of money out there in circulation, and that's, of course, how they were able to spend all the money that they didn't have. They simply just created it out of nothing. But now we do not have the restraint of a gold market. Now they can create all the money they want to. And within the last year, a little over a year, they have actually given or pledged almost $10 trillion. And, of course, the sky's the limit. We were talking earlier about the $50 to $60 trillion of credit default swaps that Bank of America and Wells Fargo have. And somebody's going to have to pick that up, and they're too big to fail. So you know who's going to pick it up. And what does that do when you suddenly create that amount of money? Why, it looks just like Zimbabwe. Okay, fine. Anything else you want to ask, Mike?
Well, when other countries buy our Treasury bonds, for example, is that transaction being done from the central banks of the other countries using a fiat system like ours?
Usually.
Yes?
It used to be there were a lot of private investors in the market, but they virtually don't exist anymore. And incidentally, during the Depression, the money and credit that was issued by the federal government increased 45%, and it did not stop the Depression. We did not get out of it until the Japanese obliged us, got us into war. both there and in Europe. And unemployment in 1940 was 16.4%. In 1939, it was 17.2%, down from about 30%. And so you can see that the make-work projects, many of which are still standing today, didn't work. You've got to get into manufacturing, and you've got to be doing things that people are creating, things that people are using. And that's the way unemployment will be broken, and they're not getting anywhere near that.
Yeah, well, because you're really talking about is going to war. That's how you, of course, you can produce all you want to, and then if it's being destroyed, why, then you can produce more and more and more. Well, let's go to Ed calling from New Hampshire, or New Hanford, New York. Hi, Ed. How are you doing?
Hello, Dr. Stan and Bob. I do get the international forecaster mailed to me. I just wanted to ask you a question. I don't remember if there's anything that I've seen regarding this. I was wondering if the banks are withholding the money for loaning in order to help cover themselves in case of the potential run on the bank, or do you think that this would be a possibility?
Yes, I do. I think what the intent of TARP is to load these institutions up with as much money as possible, even though they were on the edge of bankruptcy, that they will survive. And that's extraordinarily important to these people because some of them own the Federal Reserve System.
Hold on, we'll be right back. Ed, did that answer your question?
I think that's it. Oh, I might wonder if it's also to help in regards to the credit debacle, the credit card debacle. That would be a problem there, too.
Well, that'll get progressively worse. Bad debts are about 8 or 9% right now. And that figure is going to get up to 20 or 25. And that'll probably take about a year and a half, 2 years to get there, but it's going there. And of course, the banks are the major lenders, and they're on the hook for that, too. I mean, there's no end to this thing. This thing is not going to get over easily. And when it is going to get over is when the Illuminists decide to pull the plug because the time is propitious for them.
Mm.
And that's when it's going to happen. And so all the logic and reason and timing by us on the outside is fruitless because we don't know what their plan is, and we're never going to know until it's over. Mm. And so we just have to go with the general assumption of what is going to go on and hope we're correct in our appraisal of that so that we can protect ourselves, because we have no other defense except protection, because we can't change the system. They own Congress. They own the courts. We have a fascist government, and the new election changed nothing. And so that's what we're up against.